How many of you remember playing Follow the Leader? Almost everybody in here has played it at one time or another. The leader is the one who calls the shots. Whatever the leader did, wherever the leader went, the pack had to do the same thing. Jumping over a ditch became an adventure, though. Almost every time the leader would pick a ditch and a spot at the ditch where only he or maybe one or two others could make it over. Wasn't a very good leader, was he? Didn't take care of the pack. Sheep are great at playing follow the leader. The herd mentality looms large in a sheep brain. If sheep are in a line and they're going somewhere and someone thrusts a stick out in front of the leader of the pack, he'll jump over it. And if the stick is pulled back, the rest of the sheep still jump over it, even though it's not there. For sheep, if they see a member of the flock, one who is ahead of them, if they see them jump over something or if they see them dodge around something, every one of them behind him does the same thing. You make one sheep jump, you make the whole herd jump, regardless of whether there is actually something to jump over or not. Growing up in Galilee, Jesus knew sheep like a cowboy knows cattle. Jesus knew the instincts, the needs, the intuitions of the sheep that surrounded him in his homeland. Jesus used that everyday knowledge to reveal to the people he encountered the desires that he knew permeated and perforated their lives. Jesus always dealt with people on a basis of one-to-one personal contact. Even when he was preaching to 5,000, it was as though he were preaching to each one there. He also knew about our communal needs, our desires to be connected in some way to a larger whole, to be connected in a community. Jesus knew. I think we need to turn around and look and see. We're glad you're home. I hope you had a safe drive home. So anyway, I was just about to say, let's look at our gospel reading for today. It's found in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. If you would, let us please stand for the reading of our gospel, if you're able. Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Amen. You may be seated. In this week's gospel text, Jesus offers himself in three different roles. First, as a shepherd, then as the gatekeeper, and then finally as the gate itself. Jesus is, in other words, the port, the portal, and the patrol. As the gatekeeper of the sheep, Jesus extends himself to ensure that all the sheep that come his way are ushered towards a secure entryway. Jesus is the portal. As the gate itself, Jesus declares that he is not only a gifted guide, a sage, but the only point of entry on life's journey where there is a guarantee of safety and security, of love and protection from the wilderness and the wildness of life. As the Son of God, Jesus is the entryway to God's love and forgiveness. Jesus is the portal. Who in your life has been the portal, and patrol for you? Jesus has no hands but our hands. It is our safe guardians, our safe ways, our safe entries that make it possible for us to live our lives on the edge of everything, to enter by the gate, the port of love, the portal of safe conduct, enters into a portal of freedom and strength. Once we enter through the gate, we are ushered into lush pastures, to a place where each and every one of us may have life and have it abundantly. For many of us, one of the symbols that bring together portal, and patrol is the apron. That's why we're wearing these today, just symbolically to say this is the portal, and patrol. Shepherds wear a leather apron when shearing and bathing sheep to protect their legs. The Apostle Paul, a leather worker, wore an apron. Glass blowers and farriers are among the many professions that have worn this safety gate for protection from the hurtful and harsh experiences of life. But the apron of humility, the apron of guardianship, the apron of caregiving is most associated not with sheep or shepherds or tanners or glass blowers, but with people shepherds, known as moms. The one who wears the apron is the shepherd of the house. It leaves a mark of the blessing on our household. Now let's be honest. Not all of us had apron moms. Some of us had apron dads, or apron grandmas, or apron grandpas, or apron neighbors. In fact, for an increasing number of us, our moms and dads are apronless. When's the last time any of you bought an apron? Not that you can remember, right?
Except for me.
Except for you, okay. There's always an exception to the rule. Most of the aprons you see nowadays are on those bistro aprons. You know, the ones worn by the Iron Chefs. They're not really interested in nurturing anyone. They're only out to win it all for themselves. But within memory of many of you here this morning, aprons were protections from the harshness of kitchen encounters and the hits from everyday life. Aprons historically have been the way for moms to function as portal, and patrol for their families in a constantly changing, always altering life. Every part of that apron represented something. The strings, the pockets, the trim, the folds. Every part had a use in nourishing and growing and helping growing children and growing families. Every part had a use in nourishing us. We might not have heard of a herd of sheep that need to be taken care of, but we all know that there are herds of lost sheep that need someone to show them the way, to give them a guide, to give them a safe haven, to a place where God's love is waiting. Susanna Wesley was the mother of 19 children. Only 9 survived. It included John and Charles Wesley. But her most private prayerful moments were not defined by theology. Susanna stuffed a small space with many children, found her soul space in her apron. Susanna Wesley took many Sabbaths inside her apron. Whether she got that idea from the generations of Quakers that came before, Quaker women that came before, we don't know. But her sons told apron stories about how she would throw her apron I don't think I could do that with that mic in there. Throw her apron over her head. This one's too short or my belly's too big. But she would throw her apron over her head just to give her a moment of silence, a moment of solitude. You can imagine a small house with 9 children. There wouldn't be many places you could go for solitude. But when the kids saw her with her apron over her head, they knew to leave her alone. The aprons that our mothers wore are symbols of service. Serving food, serving care, serving love. Jesus also wore an apron of sort. On that Maundy Thursday, when he insisted on washing all the disciples' feet and drying them with a towel that he had bound around his waist. Jesus wore an apron to be a good servant to his disciples on the night before he was arrested and crucified. Jesus was always aproning up. He was always offering apron strings that could connect us to the ultimate protective power of God's love and care. In fact, the apron strings that are ridiculed by the world are the lifelines that people of faith live by. How many of us have heard that expression? They need to cut the apron strings. What are the things and strings that call you home? Smell of eggs and bacon in the morning wafting up the stairs or down the hallway? The sounds of silverware clanging in the kitchen, seeing Mom or Grandma in her apron, bustling around the kitchen. All the sounds and smells and taste of home. Or maybe it's her voice calling you to get up. Get up and come on to breakfast. Get ready for school. You got to go to work. Get up. Perhaps it's the sound of her laughter. The voice that soothes you when you fall down and scrape a knee. And from her apron pocket, she would pull out a handkerchief to blot and clean the wound, or to dry a tear maybe. Maybe she even had a Band-Aid lurking somewhere in the corner of that pocket. All the things she kept handy in each moment to be available at a moment's notice, where she might be needed to salve a wound, coax a laugh, or comfort a hurt. What did she keep in those apron pockets? Clothespins for laundry? Anyone remember the sounds of Mom clipping the sheets to the clothesline? Hearing those sheets whip in the wind? The beds lovingly made each week? Or maybe the safety pins that she used to mend the apron string when it would get torn? Or to hem a dress, or to even fix a shoestring occasionally. Maybe she had in her pocket a clipper for the garden to bring in fresh flowers in the mornings. Maybe there were a few remnants of apple peels that had fallen into the pocket while she was peeling apples in the morning. Apron moms always smelled the freshly baked bread, apple cider, bacon. I remember the bacon. A hint of lavender. What are the smells you remember? What sounds? What memories? The apron was like a part of her body. It bore the wear and tear, the seams and the scars, the stains and the soils of a life well lived. A life of dedication, commitment, love, service, humility, and sacrifice. Moms would mend those aprons over and over and over again so that she would have the money to buy new shoes for her children, or to buy her husband's favorite pipe tobacco. She would give the best of the food to everyone else. And she and her apron would always be there to load the stove with firewood. Some of our grandmothers did anyway. Or carry in vegetables from the garden. To wipe her hands full of flour. To wrap a child in a tight embrace. And when supper time came, apron moms called us all to the table. Her apron reminding us of the sacrifices made that make a family into a home blessed by God. The apron bore all the memories of childhood. Every apron tells a story, and not just one story. Every apron tells a book of stories. Every apron is a story book. Every apron stain, every tear is a story. In the act of growing up, we may untangle from the apron strings which once were used as playpens before playpens were available. But we never unbind from the imprint that it left upon our hearts. As we pass on that apron from generation to generation, we pass on our heritage of love and caring, and all the stories of every rip, every drip, every tear. The apron, as a metaphor, goes back all the way to the Garden of Eden, when our ancient parents tied aprons of fig leaves around themselves in preparation for a life in which they would toil and labor for the benefit of their children. The apron is a symbol of humility and of service. Around the waist, the apron was worn by all laborers, all who engaged in trades, all who practiced medicine and the healing arts. The apron's linen held healing in its wings, almost like the apron Jesus wore. Paul's apron exudes healing power even when removed from his body. The power of the apron is used also in prayer. Similar to the veil, it covers one in humility toward God and closes us off in our private place, our little holy place where we, like Susanna Wesley, can find God in the midst of the craziness of the world. The apron, both work garb and prayer cloth. To be cut from the cloth of the mother's apron is to be bound up in the strings that bind us to a faith that nourishes us and keeps us always looking upward, even as we shuffle through our schedules of busyness. The apron mom was a woman of the cloth, and the apron was a symbol of the sacredness of the table in the midst of everyday living. An apron mom, or grandma, was the life of the house. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. With her dedication and her love, nourishment, both physical and emotional, these women of the cloth wrapped us up in the faith and raised us clothed in love of God throughout all the family generations. From the day my mother adopted me, she made sure I was in church. I don't think I missed an Easter Sunday till I was, well, as a matter of fact, it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was in the hospital on the Easter Sunday. Otherwise, I'd have never missed an Easter Sunday from the time I was 3.5 years old till now. The apron wraps us in generational memory, like a swaddling cloth. It protects an identity hewn and cut from a tough cloth, the memories woven into the linen, each telling its own story, a family story, a God story, a story of love. Stains, tears, names, memories, smells. The fabric of our faith is embedded in our symbols and the aprons of our heritage. Today, I ask the elders to put on an apron for this service, but I'm asking each of you to put on a metaphorical apron, the apron of your grandmother or your mother or your sister or that neighborly lady who just looked after you. Or maybe it was a dad or a granddad. Maybe it was an uncle. Maybe it was just a friend that looked after you when you needed it. Those in your life who have been examples of service to God and family, community, and people. Those are the aprons that we really metaphorically wear every day. Be reminded as you leave today of the blessings we have received from those who wear the apron blood relative or not, who has taken a role in your life. And that is good news for this day. Amen.